Maryland prison officials caught a curious prison note while going about their rounds. It was an intercepted note from Kevin Merrill dedicated to his wife. It wasn't just any old love note. Instead, it had instructed her to hide their valuable assets, anything that was particularly high in value, such as the good wine. He wanted her to hide all that she could before the officials got their hands on it. It was a direct contempt of court and a clear indication that he was trying to hide all his ill-gotten assets from his massive $400 million scam. Kevin couldn't have pulled off all his scamming without the expert assistance of J. Ledford, a certified public accountant practicing in Texas. Merrill met Ledford in Dallas in 1999. At this time, Kevin was a salesman for a company in Baltimore that dealt with hospital equipment and medical practices. The friendship between the two professionals grew stronger as time progressed. After years of casino outings and sporting events, they found a common interest in defrauding consumer debt portfolio investors. Both Merrill and Ledford worked with lending and purchasing consumer debt, which made them ideal candidates for carrying out a lucrative Ponzi scheme that promised massive results on consumer debt portfolios. Kevin's skills as a salesman came in handy as he would reel investors in by making compelling false claims, getting them to pay millions of dollars into their Ponzi scheme. Ledford leveraged his craft as an accountant to create fake documents and ran a debt collection center that gave authority and credibility to Merrill's false promises. Due to this fraudulent framework, the two scammers easily won the trust of many innocent and hard-working Americans. In the beginning, both alleged scammers would reach out to investors and invite them to receive a great return on an investment opportunity in the form of consumer debt portfolios. Thanks to Ledford's fictitious tax return statements and false documents, Merrill would win the trust of even the most meticulous investors. Merrill's ability to induce investors led to him becoming the face of their fraudulent scheme. On the other hand, Ledford became responsible for falsifying operations and creating believable documents. Kevin conned his way into the hard-earned money of many innocent victims by ruthlessly pledging them a life of financial security and massive returns. They presented the concept of flipping, which made investors believe that they would purchase consumer debt portfolios with their money and sell them at a profitable price to other debt buyers. After taking the investors' money, Ledford unveiled that the conspirators used fake statements and documentation to falsely represent who they were doing business with, how much they paid for consumer debt portfolios, and how much they were selling it for. In some instances, the two con men wouldn't even spend a single penny on consumer debt profiles, and most of their money would pour into their luxury lifestyles and assets. Not to mention, they went above and beyond to mask their unlawful activities. Ledford created debt-buying companies that were mere imposters and even opened bank accounts in the name of those companies. This allowed him to present legitimate documentation of money transfers to the clients they were scamming. This wasn't all. Ledford also used fake portfolios, sales agreements, forged signatures, bank statements, false reports, and illegitimate merchant accounts to conceal the truth. The two main companies which Ledford put forth to carry out the scams were Riverwalk and DeVille. Both of the companies had collection centers. They often invite prospective target clients to visit the collection centers and elevate their credibility further. Merrill would state that the profits the investors made was through consumer debt portfolio flipping, when it was simply the circulating money from other investors. While the accused did partake in the buying and selling of debt, the majority of their revenue came from fraudulent activities. In December 2017, Ledford added another member to optimize his Ponzi scheme. Cameron Jezierski was a former employee and defendant of Ledford. Ledford appointed him the duty of managing debt collections from DeVille and Riverwalk. They also used Jezierski's analytical skills to forge documentation for their scam and disguise the actual markup price charged to investors when buying debt portfolios. An FBI special agent at a joint news conference exposed details about uncovering the fraud, explaining that the authorities caught up abducted them thanks to a tip. Many investors are now coming to terms with the fact that they have been scammed. Since 2013, the fraud has ruined the lives of investors as their savings were funding extravagant lifestyles for the three scammers. These luxuries include an array of cars and high-end jewelry. Real estate was definitely a place where the money went. Their ill-gotten gains also went to private clubs and casinos. The Department of Justice came forward with their charges in the federal court of Maryland for Merrill, Ledford, and Jazierski. Charges against the three men included conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, and identity theft. Their fraud became more apparent to the authorities after consumer debt became the year's securitized investment driver. The concerns about their scams became even more alarming after the Riverwalk financial debt collection victims started to file complaints against the company. Victims have lodged about 330 complaints against the Riverwalk financial debt collection business. Most complaints against the company are related to wire fraud, forged documentation, and statements. The feds connected the dots after finding out about Ledford and Associates PLLC. Ledford's private accounting firm meant that he could easily create documentation to deceive victims into trusting him with their money. It took numerous complaints and deep digging from the feds to finally hold the fraudulent companies accountable in a court of law. According to the SEC's complaint, due to referrals, innocent investors were accused of fraud on many occasions without involvement. The security offerings of the con artists trio rounded to $1.5 million, which sparked suspicion among the authorities. In court, Merrill's eyes became watery after he stood in front of all the innocent people he had conned. He admitted to misusing the trust of innocent people for his personal monetary gain and pledged to repay all the people he had exploited. Authorities found Merrill evacuating buckets worth of cash from his vacation home, amounting to $11 million at that time. Federal investigators were sure to snatch their leisurely and extravagant lifestyle right from their fingertips. This wealthy lifestyle became evident as federal officers started scooping through all their assets, belongings, and real estate. When making the arrest, agents conducted a raid at the couple's residence in Towson. Among the many assets the federal agents seized during this raid, some of the wealth included a pricey watch collection, over $5 million in cash, a car collection, and more. Kevin also had to give up $30 million due to the indictment. Along with this amount, he also had to forfeit 25 luxury cars, a boat, an insurance policy, aircraft interest, expensive jewelry, and other assets. When Kevin was serving jail time and awaiting sentence, his wife Amanda redeemed her husband's American Express card. Upon redeeming the card, frozen by the government, $26,075 in the form of gift cards from retail businesses such as Home Depot, Target, Starbucks, Sephora, and Nordstrom. The house raid also allowed the FBI agents to confiscate $15,378 cash from Amanda's purse and closet drawer. The government sold Merrill's mansions, exotic sports cars, and yachts to repay the investors. The culprits raised around $345 million by scamming individual investors, feeder funds, small business owners, and professionals. They used this money to live lavishly, transferring money to private banks and spending on some of the priciest items. For instance, some of their purchases included a Ferrari worth around $4 million, a 7-carat diamond ring, a diamond bracelet, and millions of casinos. Merrill also purchased properties in Florida and had a handsome amount of club memberships. Most of these purchases came from the money of investors that had fallen for the Ponzi scheme. Prosecutors also say he blew a figure of nearly $8 million in 5 years on Louis Vuitton collection by defrauding investors across the country. Ledford, on the other hand, burnt most of the scam cash on his toxic gambling addiction. He used a whopping $42 million to fulfill his gambling desires across the country. When indulging in gambling activities at casinos, Ledford would generally present a cashier's check, which he would convert into the form of playable chips. By the end of his gambling ventures inside the casino, if Ledford won, the casino would give him his winnings in the form of a check or cash. After giving him the money, the casino returned the cashier's check to Ledford. When Ledford lost during his casino roundup, the casino would use the front money to cover all of his losses and pay him the difference. It was estimated that Ledford returned about $18 million in checks and casino wires. Reports on currency transaction also show evidence of Ledford's gambling addiction and how he used the Ponzi scheme money for his habits. Casino records show that Ledford suffered a net loss of over $14 million in 6 years. He would use the investors' money to go on gambling trips and lost an incredible amount. In one particular gambling trip, Ledford lost about $1.5 million. Kevin Merrill and other heartless scammers stole from honest and hardworking people. Some even invested their lifelong earnings into the fraudulent companies in hopes of a better future for their loved ones. One such example is John Paradise, who drove all the way from New Jersey to attend the court proceedings. He told the court that all of his life savings were gone. Scammed out of $250,000 he had saved to send his daughters to college. He explained how his current circumstances were negatively affecting his mental and physical health. John Paradise addressed his feelings to Kevin Merrill in court, saying that he'll have a completely clear conscience when he steps out of court today. He goes on to say that Merrill's memory will be flushed away and he'll continue to find goodness in people despite the price he had to pay. This statement in the court trial was incredibly impactful. The judge compared Merrill with Bernie Madoff during the trial, deeming Madoff the better con artist of the two. Despite scamming a much higher amount, Bernie Madoff had the integrity to come out and confess his actions. On the other hand, Kevin Merrill kept drawing innocent investors towards his Ponzi scheme until he was caught. The 6-year-long Ponzi scheme, which raised about $396 million and funded luxurious lifestyles, was fortunately halted for 400 victims worldwide. Kevin B. Merrill faced a sentence of 22 years in prison. Kevin's wife also faced house arrest for trying to hide assets and recover damages. The trio used the expertise of fraud associates and leveraged forgery and fake documentation to easily convince investors. This fraud was enormous, and it took a long time for the government to crunch the numbers. Wire fraud and conspiracy were two outstanding and dominant charges against Kevin Merrill. Part of his plea deal involved admitting to his fraud in Maryland, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. Investors looking for a 20% return were left stranded. The scheme was sophisticated, ruthless, and cold-hearted. It was recorded that Merrill, along with his two associates, orchestrated meticulous schemes which accounted for nearly $400 million. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather do: manage your own money or hire a professional.